Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Crossbeats production.
What's going on? Here with Nate28, and this is Crossbeats production. So I want to show you guys a quick tip about using a compressor on your bus. So not a driving bus, obviously your audio bus. So if you're busing or routing certain things, like for example your drums to one certain bus, or even vocals or whatever it is, you can use this same technique on pretty much anything. It works really fantastic. So I just wanted to share this with you briefly. So the other thing I'll just quickly go over as well is the EQ that I've got prior to this compression that's going on. I've slightly mixed some of the low end and the kick together, so I just want to share that with you as well. So I'll just start with that maybe first. What I'm going to do is play this track to you and just show you kind of what it sounds like. I haven't really done a whole lot of mixing on it yet, but I'm just in the middle of it, so I just wanted to show you these tips right now. So let me play this track to you and we'll get straight into that. Okay, so pretty much what's going on here is I've got the kick and the bass, which I isolated originally, and all I did on that, I'll just move this compressor out of the way, all I did was put an EQ on the bass and an EQ on the kick. So as you can see, there's kind of a little bit of EQ going on with both of these, and I've just isolated some of the low end on the bass, on what's 808, and some of the 100 hertz, and I just took out some of that. I did something similar with the 50 on the kick. I took out like a little bit of a dip in there, I think 2.35, yep, so minus 2.35 on that. And I also used a bit of a cut, the low cut filter or a high pass, either way you want to look at it, at a 12 dB per octave slope. And I just removed out some of that really low end stuff that's not really required on the kick. The reason why I did that is so I could allow some of the bass to kind of sit in that spot and have its own sort of, positioning in the mix itself. So another quick thing I want to show you as well is the sidechain function that you can use with your two. If you've got, for example, a piano or a kick or whatever you want to have, you can have two sources of audio or even more if you wanted to. You can just go to your sidechains and you hit send to the kick. So if this is your kick or your piano or bass or whatever it is, the reason why I'm showing you this is basically because it allows the one plugin that you're sending it to. So this is the kick. I'm sending the bass to this plugin, so it sidechains this little button here and allows you to show what's going on. So you can pretty much see, as you can see there, it had the slope of the kick and the bass playing at the same time. So it allows me to see both and where they're filling each side of the spectrum, and I can kind of EQ accordingly. If you don't have, like, for example, neutron, this is a cheaper way of doing it without having to, have other sort of monitoring that you've got going on there. So just a quick tip, hopefully that you guys can get something out of that. Otherwise, let's get straight into the drum bus, and I'll just show you this technique that I have been using for a long time. And I'm sure that lots of people talk about it, and it's probably talked about many a time on different channels as well. But part of it is parallel mix, which is, wet and dry mix, the compressed versus uncompressed signal mixed together. But the other main part is also the filtering section, so the sidechain filter in this plugin. So if you're familiar with the compressor in Studio One, this compressor is really good for what you get in a standard compressor. It's actually very versatile for the stock compressor. And what I basically do when I have a drum bus, or any bus for that matter, I really try and concern myself with the low end frequencies as far as how much of it is actually getting past the compressor and is not being compressed with the rest of the signal. And the reason why I do this is because it starts to suffocate the track if you allow too much low end being compressed with the the main signal that you've got going through it. For an example, I've got this kick. It's basically the whole entire drum kit. I'll just play that to you and I'll show you kind of what it sounds like, and you guys can hear it without the compressor and then with. And then I'll just show you with the filter on and with it off as well. So let me play this with the compressor on and then without it. Okay, So you might have heard something with the snare mainly, and how that sat with the rest of the parts of the drum kit. What I get in my studio, at least, is I kind of hear it being more centered and focused, with the snare being more punchy in that regard, sort of just coming through the mix a little bit more. And that's kind of handy when you get to, trying to mix the drum kit with the rest of your instruments. So the other thing I want to show you here is the filter here. So the sidechain filter, if I just turn this on and off, basically what it's doing is it's allowing the kick to get past the compressor without actually compressing it. It's compressing the remainder of the source with the actual source. The remainder of the audio that passes through the compressor, it's actually compressing that. The kick's bypassing it pretty much, and it's not compressing that. So it's allowing a bit of movement in the track, and that's kind of what you're after. So just the settings that I've got here is pretty much I've got 11.9, not specifically any reason other than it sounded good to my ear. So I just pulled that needle all the way till I got to 11 point. So I pulled the dial, I should say, all the way till 11.9, and it ended up being -3, -4 dB roughly. And I actually had this all the way mixed, completely wet, until I then decided that I liked kind of how it sounded, how the transients are going through. And then I pulled it back down all the way to 0 and then slowly mixed it back in, and it finally ended up at 22%. Release styles are sort of, I guess, transient dependent as far as the BPM, but they're not really tuned exactly to the BPM. It's just by ear that I played with these, and it sounded right at these settings. A faster release for parallel compression is probably more adequate as far as that's concerned. But getting to this filter thing, let me play it with the filter on and then without it, and listen to the low end of the kick and listen to how it's going to affect with the bass as well. So we'll play these drums together with the 808. So I presume you guys can probably hear what's happening there. It kind of allowed the kick to kind of sit in its own space and allowed the bass to sit in its own space, being the 808. They kind of sat nicely together, and it kind of felt like they were supposed to be joined together. And that's because I've allowed some of the bass on the actual kick drum to go through and sort of sit right with the 808 as well. So this is just a little technique that you can kind of use to avoid over compressing, especially the low end in your mix. There might be times where you want to compress it, but sometimes you just want to have it breathe and allow it to have its own space in the mix. So hopefully this is a helpful tip. I don't know if you guys already know this or not, but if you didn't, remember to hit that like button, and also make your comments below about the type of things you guys do with compression. It's always good to start up a conversation about that. And remember to subscribe to the channel. We're getting close to 2,000 subscribers, so I really got to say thank you for that. And as always, catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.